What's up, everybody? This your boy C Hess with Motivated Minds. The video y'all about to watch is it's about a week or so old. This is the tail end of the last video that I did with my son when we were talking about The Little Mermaid. You think representation is important? Okay, why? Why is representation important?
Kind of like how you always say, like, like growing up, like having like as a boy, like an African American boy looking up to African American male. You know what I'm saying? And like what you essentially like a role model.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh hey, like they look just like me, this other stuff, yada yada.
So he had finished talking, and I had pretty much hit the stop button. He was in the kitchen, and the conversation just kind of continued. But I was just telling him some stuff. So I talked to him a lot. And we do have some pretty in-depth conversations. A lot of times I pick his brain. And I like doing that because he's young. He's in his 20s. And I just like the way he thinks. We are a lot alike. He's a little bit more quieter than me. But, his thought process, it's just kind of like mine. So I don't want to do too much talking. So y'all check this out. Why are you into Black history the way that you are? And why do you look up the things that you look up? Because what I realize is, one, like for me, I can say I'm the first generation, and I've said this in the video, a first generation of people in our family that was born with the full rights of American citizen, with an American citizen, right? Yes, so, but just a couple years before I was born, the schools here in Jacksonville and stuff were still segregated, right? I'm saying just 2 or 3 years before I was born, right?
Right.
So that's why I do that, because once all that knowledge is gone, first-hand knowledge,
right.
If they take all the books out, guess what that means? They can,
More control.
Well, yeah, you can say control, but then they can change the narrative the way that they want to change it. They can tell history, right? Because when I was coming up, we used to say history, History. His history is his story, right? So normally history, like when you have a war, history is actually told from the perspective of the people who won the war. So then,
Indian, all that other stuff.
right. So then think about this too. So think about even the Civil War, all right?
Right.
Normally, when somebody loses a war, pretty much all memory of them is wiped out because they lost the war. Only in America that I can think of did the losers get immortalized and idolized. Does that make sense?
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
we still, even though they started taking them down, we still have statues in this country that reminds us of the Civil War and slavery, right?
Right.
And all that. So, like here in Jacksonville, they've changed the majority of the names of the schools. We had a whole school: Robert E. Lee, Jeb Stuart, Jefferson Davis, all this crap that was reminiscent of the Civil War, right?
Right.
And slavery. So they've started tearing that stuff down and taking it down. I personally think a lot of those monuments and stuff should be in a museum, right?
Right.
Because that is the history of this country. And it's not a pretty history. Does that make sense?
Yeah, pretty much like ignoring it as if it never happened.
Right, but it did.
Right.
So this is the other thing. I don't really know if we should separate our history like into American history and Black history, because Black history is American history. Right? You can't tell American history without telling Black history.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
But we get this 1 month when they focus on Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King.
And Malcolm X.
No, they don't. No, not really.
Really?
Did you learn about Malcolm X in school? Huh?
Fair.
Okay.
Yeah, not really.
Exactly. Did you learn about Huey P. Newton in school?
You got a good point.
Did you learn about Marcus Garvey in school?
No, sir.
Now, you might have learned about the Peanut Man, George Washington Carver, right? But you didn't learn about W.E.B. Du Bois. You might have learned about Frederick Douglass, possibly Booker T. Washington, right? But you might have not, maybe when you got to literature, you might have learned about Langston Hughes. But I bet you didn't learn about Zora Neale Hurston and James Baldwin and some of them people, right? But again, Black history is American history. You understand what I'm saying?
That's right.
And they give us 28 days, 29 if it's a leap year, to learn about Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks.
Right.
But you never learn about Claudette Colvin and so many other people who sat down prior to.
Oh, also Madam C.J. Walker, too.
Yeah, Madam C.J. Walker is another one. She's another good story, right? What about Sojourner Truth? But you learn about Harriet Tubman too, more likely, in the underground.
Oh, that was Harriet Tubman before Sojourner that we learned. Remember that?
Right. But you don't learn about many of the prominent figures, right? Like
Right.
Denmark Vesey and Nat Turner, right? Gabriel Prosser. You know what I'm saying?
I think Nat Turner, it was briefly mentioned in high school, but not as much.
Right. So I'm just saying, man. So when what I'm saying is, so when people like your grandmommy, your granddaddy, and them, and all those people with that firsthand knowledge, right? Once those people are gone, pretty much, and everybody who was witnessed it, once they gone, they can read. That's why they don't. I just personally think people have no clue about what critical race theory is, but they're afraid to teach it because I think that one, some of them folk don't want to be held accountable for the actions of their grandparents and great grandparents, right? And the so-called founding fathers of the country. They don't want to be held accountable for their actions, right? So they trying to change the history books. You know what I'm saying? And I saw some books that talked about they didn't want to call slaves. They want to call them indentured servants. Indentured servitude and slavery is two totally different things. Yeah, it's not the same thing. That's why the 13th Amendment says that slavery nor servitude, because it's two totally different things. And if people really want to know the difference, they need to pick up a book and they need to read. So I'm just saying, man.